Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Don Mears, and our opening words for today will be by the Irish poet Padraig Ó Tuama. The name of his poem is Hold Yourself Together and Pull Yourself Apart, and it's a reflection on the words of Ignatius of Loyola. Ignatius says, in a time of desolation, do not make a life-changing decision and do not go back on a decision made during a time of consolation. Remember the times of consolation. And then the poet's response, remember that this has passed before and that there will be more days of plenty eventually. Pay attention to your feelings. Keep those feelings sharp. Try to hold yourself together and pull yourself apart. Keep your eyes on the prize that you might never gain. Don't ignore whatever pain is blooming like a flower that you have never planted. Occupy your hands with kindness. Remember, you can see, even through this blindness, is remarkable. Mark the places that you are feeling. Mark the spaces where you're needing held. Mark the evenings that are dark. And mark the afternoon of coping. Mark the morning that you awaken, finding morning has been taken to a different part of Heartland. Remember what has passed before. Pour your body like the sacramental wine. Pour your blood with loving.
Good morning. I'm Molly, and I'm going to serve as your worship associate today. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalists of Central Delaware. This is our Sunday service. We continue to be grateful for the technology that allows us to continue to meet during these times of social and physical distancing. Thank you for your patience and grace when we have technical glitches or delays. Consider them, if you will, an invitation to take a deep breath. In addition to our worship on Sundays at 10, we also meet on Tuesday nights at 7 for a more informal time of checking in and sharing. Please consider joining us for that gathering. And for all of our connections, we encourage you to invite a friend to join us and to get to know our UUCD community. There is certainly room in our hearts, in our space, for more people who are searching for a liberal, diverse, non-judgmental. Now I invite you to take a deep breath and listen to these sincere words of welcome. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you've been, whatever you've done, whatever your religious beliefs are or aren't, and wherever you physically are on the planet right now, you are welcome in this spiritual community. However you move in this world, how much of or how little is in your bank account or wallet, however you are feeling in this moment, you and all of who you are welcome in this spiritual community. We are all enhanced by being together.
Good morning. It's time for the chalice lighting. I can get my, here we go. We light this chalice, reminding ourselves that Unitarian Universalists around the globe light chalices in communion with us. These are the words of Albert Schweitzer. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. Please join me in our unison affirmation. The words are in the chat box. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
I'm just going to point out the UU moment. This is the UU moment. And I just want to point out the common read for the year. UUA picks a book every year, and they encourage congregations all over the world to read the book and have discussions about it, or in some cases we try to read the book and then we try to come up with some kind of an action related to the book. We've done that for a few years now. So the book this year is called Breathe, A Letter to My Sons. And it's written by Imani Perry. It's gotten quite a bit of attention, and I've just ordered it for myself, and if anybody else is interested in looking at it, and or maybe going on the website and just looking to see what it's all about. It's on the first page of the UUA website. Maybe we can make a plan for after the holidays. Perhaps we can make a plan to get together and talk about the book. So I would like to do that anyway.
It is our time of joys and concerns when we offer one another the opportunity to share very briefly what is most on our hearts right now, life celebrations and concerns. As you do so, we invite you to light a candle in your own space. Through the action of sharing and kindling a flame, we give energy to our best thoughts, meditations, sympathies, celebrations, and prayers. We hold these as sacred in our collective hearts. At this time, we invite you to change your view to gallery view in the upper right corner of your screen so that you can see everyone who is here. As you feel led, please unmute your microphone and share your joy or concern and light your candle if you have one. You can watch the mute signals on the lower left of each person's video stream to see if anyone else is unmuted. It is best if we share one at a time. Please mute your microphone after you have shared. We'll light one final candle for the joys and concerns that were not spoken by those of us here, and in solidarity with others in our community who could not be with us today. And now it is time for the offering, which is a central part of our worship. It's our opportunity to practice the art of generosity. Our gifts to UUCD are what allow this congregation to thrive with a common vision to nurture our spirits, build community, and change the world. We are grateful to you for the many ways you support our community, including your financial pledges and offerings. Your gifts truly translate into lives changed. Every part of our ministry, from the worship that grounds us in our values, to the community gatherings that connect us, to our children's education, to our social justice outreach and actions. These are all supported by your gifts. We are entering this new church year with gratitude for the ways we have stayed connected in this past year, enthusiasm for new opportunities to live out our mission, and a great hope that we will find innovative ways to work and worship together. Your giving makes all of these things possible. For those who are making pledges or who want to contribute to the community, you may continue to write checks and mail them, or you can give online. There are instructions for both of these things on our website at uucd.org. Just click Support UUCD on the menu bar. You can do that now during this offering song or any time that's convenient.
Now we're going to change the mood just a little bit. Enter our centering part of our service. Our centering brings us back to ourselves, to our body. So time for reflection, for quiet, for putting ourselves in a peaceful place. And what we're doing is we're putting ourselves in a space where we're going to be open to the reflection that follows. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, relax. And if you want to, you can close your eyes, you can leave them open, whichever you're comfortable with. So just for a moment, we're going to listen to the words of Thich Nhat Hanh. As we breathe in and breathe out, let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves wholly. Let us be aware of the source of being, common to us all and to all living things. Evoking in the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion toward ourselves and toward all living beings. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life and of the sufferings that are going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. Amen. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I am breathing out.
Our UU faith places particular importance upon the value of our relationship to the larger community. All 7 of our guiding principles can be practiced in the context of community. We have not been asked to put these values aside in a pandemic. To the contrary, now is the time to reassert how important these values are to us and how we may continue to practice them despite physical distancing and enforced isolation during the holidays. At times of increased social isolation, we have always been good at reaching out and caring for others. With the holidays coming, the stress of feeling isolated will likely increase. This means we will have to step up our game when it comes to serving our community. As we enter into the winter months, the pandemic rages, spurred on by increasingly close quarters, a national election, a series of holidays where physical distancing and mask wearing are likely to be abandoned, and pandemic fatigue. In this service, I want to invite us to reflect on our actions this time of year and consider safe alternatives to social isolation that may serve our need to connect to the larger community, while also maintaining the safety of all those in the larger community. As we enter the holiday period, many of us may be tempted to celebrate in the manner to which we are traditionally accustomed, with friends and loved ones gathered around the Christmas tree to sing songs of the season. We may tell ourselves that it's just family, even as some of these people have traveled from out of state, besides which they all appear asymptomatic. We rationalize that our friends and coworkers are most certainly a safe bet, and besides, who wishes to be alone during this time of year? But these rationalizations increase our risk of infection. Collectively, these risks are going to produce yet another surge in infection rates, and higher infection rates mean that performing everyday tasks safely, as we had in previous months, now takes on greater risk than before, all but ensuring that the spike in infections will grow exponentially, reaching yet new heights. Currently, many states are experiencing such high caseloads of the virus that their ICUs are beyond capacity, and very sick patients are being triaged in places never designed to accommodate the mortally ill. Despite this, an Ohio University study suggests that 40% may have spent the Thanksgiving holiday in groups of 10 or more people. Perhaps you are experiencing pressure from your own family and loved ones to put aside your fears this holiday season. If you must have that difficult conversation with extended family members or friends who expect to celebrate the holidays face to face, here are some tips on how to have a successful conversation. First off, admit that this is a hard conversation to have, but your intent is to stay safe this season so that you might be around to celebrate future seasons of joy in person. Secondly, avoid citing any facts you may have at your disposal. The reasons we enjoy being with loved ones this time of year has everything to do with emotions, not our capacity to reason. We can bypass any argument based on whose reasoning is more reality-based, by focusing instead on concerns regarding the most vulnerable in your family. You can say things such as, I'm not comfortable with exposing grandma, or I don't want to have to worry about you. In this way, we're owning our feelings and we're avoiding factual statements. Lastly, avoid coming off as sounding judgmental or critical. You may feel this way, but it's best to not express it. Instead, adopt a tone of curiosity and quest to figure out what your family really wants. Make sure that those you are talking to feel heard and understood. We sometimes talk about these issues as if we're being asked to trade off increased risk of death from social isolation for the increased risk of death due to exposure to the virus. But this is a trap, a false binary, which operates in the belief that our options are limited. Our options are only as limited as our imagination. We often fail to give ourselves credit for the ways we have already adapted to these new circumstances. All around us, institutions such as school and the church are being asked to experiment with new methods to interact. We may not always get it right at first or ever, but since we are good about learning from our mistakes, we may yet to hope to get better every day. Take, for example, the way we conduct our religious services during this time. Of course, we may wish to gather in person as we once had, to shake hands or hug one another. Of course, we miss the way things were before all these restrictions were imposed upon us. Our lament or regret sometimes causes us to lose sight of the fact that we have actually adapted to these new circumstances. When you get down to it, human beings are a remarkably adaptive species, and you viewers no less so. Let's say we miss being with our grandchildren on Christmas morning, when they wake up and start tearing into gifts. Well, how about if we organize some FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, or other real-time virtual connection so that we might still enjoy this activity from a distance? We might even decide to plan separate holiday dinners, but share the table with distant family members via Facebook. If we can't wait to share a movie with someone special, how about if we coordinate our movie viewing at the same time so we can share our experience in real time, connecting via our favorite media? None of these activities are normal, but if we are willing to take an extra step, we may find we can go some distance to alleviating social isolation. In the best of times, increased social isolation is associated with increased instances of substance abuse and suicidality. As we are not currently living in the best of times, we know that deaths of despair are on the rise. This may compel us to reach out to those who may feel lonely, or perhaps address our own feelings of loneliness this time of year. Here I'm going to present 3 rules of thumb to avoid feelings of loneliness during the current pandemic. Rule number 1 is strive to stay connected to others. Being able to share your feelings with others can help with loneliness, and hearing a familiar voice or seeing a friendly face can make us feel less isolated. Phones work really well for this. We can make it a point to check in with others more regularly. For example, when in the past I used to speak to my sister every couple of months, during the pandemic, I find that our calls are almost weekly. Remember that many people tend to share only the good things happening to them. So we might want to avoid comparing yourself to anyone else, as this can make you or them feel even lonelier. Don't be afraid of admitting your loneliness. You don't have to wait until you feel good or positive to call someone. Connect in a real way by doing so no matter what you are feeling. We note this season a resurgence in holiday card sharing. This is an old tradition that may serve us well during a pandemic, an old practice that may find new meaning during these times. Bingo games were once a wonderful way to entertain older folks looking for some excuse to get out of the house. What if we could find some way to broadcast such events online? As we already mentioned, our church and a number of others are utilizing technology to maintain access to worship services. We learn as we go and we gain feedback on how to further prevent feelings of isolation and loneliness. In other countries, they have been experimenting with conducting support groups online. In some places, AA or NA groups now meet online. And if your local group is not meeting in person, it's not important anymore because geographical proximity is no longer required when we meet online. Our own church's meditation group chooses to practice walking meditation at Breakneck Park. Of course, they all wear masks and practice social distancing, but as long as it's not snowing, this activity will likely grow in popularity. Prior to the pandemic, we all had a group of friends who we may have regularly met with to share how we are feeling. Just because we can no longer meet in person for brunch is no reason to ignore these folks. What if we schedule a virtual hangout? There are several platforms that allow for this. Has anyone considered a game of Scrabble from a distance? We only need to learn how the technology can work for us to make this possible. A second rule of thumb is to prioritize self-care. It may sound contradictory, but we can't really take care of others unless we're fully taking care of ourselves. This means you must take special care to ensure you get enough exercise and sleep, that you eat well and breathe deeply every day. Connect to joy and gratitude. These activities help keep us grounded. This self-care can be extended to the larger household to which you are bound during the pandemic. I hear constantly how families have discovered or rediscovered the pile of board games that were hiding on that high shelf in the closet. When we brought all those games, we intended to play them. Playing together is a good way to practice enjoying one another, as opposed to seeing ourselves as trapped. Now may be the time to make those activities that were previously done just by a single person more collective activities. Washing dishes can be a family event now, as well as cooking dinner. Let's make the best of it with this unique opportunity presented to us. As a general rule, people have been advised to take better care of themselves by taking a break from social media. So now it might sound strange for us to change our tune during the pandemic. It's true, younger people in particular may have over-relied on social media at the expense of actual face-to-face interactions, much to their detriment. But for some older folks who have already mastered the art of social interaction face-to-face, they're now well positioned to benefit from video chat or other interactive platforms, providing, of course, some patient younger person will have already explained to us older folks how to use the technology. The intent here is to do more than just interact anonymously with strangers. We wish to utilize technology to reconnect with some people we may be missing during a time of social isolation. And finally, rule number 3 is to try and stay busy by learning something new. You know how we always say, if I had more time, I would learn to speak Spanish, build a birdhouse, play guitar, or cook more ethnic food? Now is the time that all our reasons for being too busy are revealed for what they were: poor excuses. If you want to learn any of these things, you can probably get started by viewing an instructional video on YouTube. As we stay engaged in new activities, we may more easily tolerate our time alone. And when we finally are able to meet up again in person, we will have some new talent to show off. If you're staying home, entertaining radio shows or podcasts are a good way to occupy your mind and keep you company. You could listen to audiobooks and join an online book club to talk about them with others. There are also lots of comedy clubs online, so search for something that will make you laugh. Laughing helps generate the dopamine and endorphins we all need to counteract stress. While we're at it, maybe it's time to give that mindfulness app on your phone a try. Our options are only as limited as our imagination. In conclusion, we must learn to stop lamenting the loss of the way things were and recognize we've been doing pretty well at adjusting to our new circumstances. Of course, we all hate the masks, but each of us now carry them in our car and think nothing of donning them should we need to go grocery shopping. We may love to complain, but in fact, we're all doing our bit to keep getting by. There are always new things we can learn, new innovations we can adopt, and as necessity is the mother of invention, these will continually come to us. We're doing a damn good job overall. We only need to commit and recommit to staying faithful to the new safety protocols until such a time they are no longer needed. We cannot afford to allow our frustration or a sense of nostalgia to place us at risk during the holidays. Be safe and try to remember we are all in this together. In that spirit of togetherness, now would be a good time to hear from other members of our congregation with respect to creative ways we are striving to stay connected over the holidays while practicing social distancing. We can switch to gallery view at this time and take turns unmuting ourselves so that we might share our ideas.
Michael, thank you so much for your reflection remarks today. I'm glad I got up this morning. I just want to echo something you said in terms of one of the ways of staying connected, you know, through the electronics and whatnot. And I think I know I've mentioned this to some people that Jack and I have been very thankful for having access to some additional support groups, and for me, some care partner groups for his illness, which is kind of rare. So we have had the delight of just getting to know people, you know, from coast to coast and even as far away as like Portugal. So that has been good. We've been doing a few deck visits, and the quality of interactions when I, you know, talk to a neighbor across the street, I think it's deeper now even than before. So these are some, you know, unexpected benefits of the pandemic.
I'd just like to say that I enjoy the Zoom technology. I've had more opportunities to speak to my brothers now than I've done in years. And it's getting to the point now when we talk to one another, we can remember things we just talked about in the last session before that, and it's bringing us all closer to one another, and more so than in years. So, you know, I'm just really thankful for the Zoom technology.
I had this idea of gaming. Gaming has always been a big, really important to me and my wife, like Dungeons and Dragons, online game, computer games, and things like that. So one thing about Dungeons and Dragons is you have to be face to face at a table with dice and writing stuff on paper, and it was really kind of depressing to be like, oh, how are we going to meet with our gaming folks? But there's actually applications that are specifically for particular games that people like. There's actually one that we found that has dice in it, and you can have little monsters that go around the board and things. It's all this, like, and we can see each other. We can still see each other's face, like Zoom. It's a different application, but it's made for that. So I guess my idea is that if you have, I'm thinking games in particular, like if you want to play chess with somebody or something like that, the old traditional chess thing of having a grid, like A10, you know, you can actually do that with people online and still play a board game, Scrabble on Facebook. whatever kind of game, if that's something you like to do or something you wanted to learn how to do, like you were saying, learn how to do it by going on finding apps that people, you're not the only one who wants to play a new game, you know. So anyway, that's it.
Please join me as we extinguish our chalice. I have pasted the words into the chat box for all of us. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing words today are attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. Where hate rules, let us bring love. Where sorrow, joy. Let us strive more to comfort others than to be comforted, to understand others than to be understood, to love others than to be loved. For it is in giving that we receive, and in pardoning that we are pardoned.
Now,
Love, sweet love.
no, not just for some, but for everyone.
Lord, we don't need another mountain.
There are mountains and hillsides enough to climb.
It's the only thing that there's just too little love.
What the world needs now
It's love, sweet love, no, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another meadow. There are cornfields and wheat fields enough to grow. There are sunbeams and moonbeams enough to shine.
Oh, listen, Lord, if you want to know